Yeah, I lived in a town, and I don't know if I want to name the town because
Sure.
it was in Michigan.
Okay.
Let's just leave it at that.
All right.
And I was probably one of two blacks that lived in that town. And there a few stories. I walked around the corner one time, and some woman was looking at her phone or whatever, and we were coming toward each other, and she looked up and she and this was in 2000 something, dude.
What?
And I'm like, are you kidding me? And just some other instances in that town, and I knew because I had toured, the world, and I knew it still happened. But then there's some small rural areas that I was surprised that it was still that strong, So I believe the reason God put me into that town there in Michigan, there are probably 10 or 15 homes that I befriended. I became friends with people, and I know that they had never had a black person having dinner at their home or sitting on their couch meeting their kids, and I was able to help them. But then for me, I got tired of trying to be Martin Luther King.
That was my
In
question though. Was that
town.
important to you though?
It wasn't something I was realized I was doing at the time. I think I
Okay.
was just being James, being the guy from California that just likes everybody.
So you didn't have
But
perspective on it until
after I
afterwards.
left, I went, oh, that's why I was put in this situation. But it was really sad. I didn't want to come home from tours.
No.
No. Why? Why? I lived by myself.
Oh, because that was the town you
that was
lived
the
in.
town.
Oh, I
Yeah.
see what you're saying.
Yeah,
Okay.
I didn't want to. It was like I keep going. Oh, guys, come on, let's stay together a little bit longer. Because my band lived in other states, and we'd all meet, and I was like, oh, God. But that's what happened.
So it's funny because now that you've said that you didn't realize it at the time, because it almost the way you were talking about it in the other room, it almost seemed to me like that was something that was important to you, that you almost took it on as like a mantle, like
Maybe I did unconsciously, but I didn't realize it at the time. But, it was something, because when I was home off of the road, I live in this small town and I got to go to eat here, and people knew me because I did James Armstrong, because I did a festival in that town, and it was a big deal, and I did really well, and the whole so it was like, oh, we got James Armstrong in our town.
Right.
He lives here. So I was a part of that community, but I didn't, I'm not saying everyone was like that,
Oh, of course.
but I'm going to say 90%. Yes, I'm sorry. They really were. But it was, they just, what you don't know, you don't know. I mean, it's the same. I did it myself. I had I didn't have an issue with Muslims, but I went to Beirut, Lebanon. This is Beirut, Lebanon. I did
what year?
this is when the whole planet was looking for Bin Laden.
Okay.
I don't know, 2005, 6, I don't know. But anyway, it was all a propaganda that I heard. And what I taught, my dad had taught me so much, and he had passed, been dead for quite a while, and I had this little thing when I went over there. I wasn't racist, but it was like, eh. And then after being there the first week and meeting all these beautiful, wonderful people, I was mad at myself for having that negative thought in my head. And I did 2 weeks, and then I guess I did well. They called me back like 8 months later and did bigger show. I actually met Bin Laden's brother. That's a long story.
One of them. There's like
One
300
of the
of them or
guy
something,
that
right?
that he came to 3 shows. He owned all of the Hard Rock cafes in the
Oh, okay.
movies.
Part of the construction side.
And that's
of it.
where
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
where
yeah.
I met him. But that's the whole thing. So I really look at racism, especially in the small communities. If everybody there, even the black community, even the Asian community, if that's all you see every day, you don't know any difference. And if your parents have an issue or your grandparents, that kind of rubs off on you. You see what I'm saying? If you live in a place, even now there's more social media, the kids can open up an app and see an Asian, you know, if they live in a rural white area or vice versa. But, you know, there's times when that didn't happen, where all you see is people that look like you. So when you go somewhere and see somebody else, I did a show in Norway. And they had to take us out to the boat to this big fjord, and they had big signs, James Armstrong. I was embarrassed. I mean, they had the flower for that. I'm serious. This is some shit that happens in people's life. Yeah. So all these people were coming up, and I'm embarrassed because it's all these people in this island. Dude, there's a little girl walking up to me with, she must have been 5 or 6, some beautiful flowers. I bend down and go, "Hi, sweetheart." And I grab the flowers, and she's the cutest thing. She grabs my hand. Give me your hand. She grabs my hand, and she goes, and her parents are going, "Oh, no." And I went, "Sweetheart, it's okay." And I gave her a hug. She had never seen a black person. She's going, "Dude, you got something on your hand."
There was a story my grandmother used to tell
Jeez.
about walking my aunt around when she was, because my aunt was born in England. Okay, and was telling. I remember the story. She was pushing around in a pram, a baby stroller, right? And she's like 1 or 2 years old, like just getting out to talk. And my grandmother would tell the story about the first time that she saw a black man standing on the corner, and my aunt apparently looked over and went, "Mommy, he's a chocolate." Like thought he was made of chocolate, right?
Of course.
And it's just
you can't. They're children.
Yeah.
You can't. So you can't blame them. But what happens is. That's why when I said that I went to 8 elementary schools, I went here, I saw every nationality on the planet probably before I was 10. You see, so it was like, oh. But if you don't see that,
right,
you know, until you're 19, I mean, there are people literally that don't see that. There's on all sides. I know some black communities that have problems because they live where they live, and it's all African American. They hardly see a white person or a Mexican or an Asian. So they have issues. So it's across the board. But, you know, with our society today, with social media and with things that are going on, we need to open up more. We need to open up because the demographic of this whole world is changing, you know.
That'll do it for this episode of the ABB Podcast. Don't forget you can subscribe to our full audio episodes on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or anywhere you find your audio podcasts. The full episodes, highlights, and our live off-the-floor performance videos can be found at our YouTube channel, and you can follow us on Facebook and Instagram at the AVB Podcast. Of course, you'll find links to our incredible sponsors and this week's guest in the description below. The AVB Podcast is part of the Border City Network. Find more great content at bordercitynetwork.com. See you next time, folks. Bye-bye.